What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Kinda Funny Gamescast for Tuesday, May 21st, 2024. I'm one of your hosts, Greg Miller, alongside Forbes 30 Under 30, a.k.a. the New York Game Awards nominated, a.k.a. Leftover Poppy Blessing Adeoye Jr.
Good day, Greg.
Good day. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm excellent.
That's good.
I'm happy to be here with you.
I'm so curious about that hat.
You'll hear all about it on Greg Way. Very simple, guys. Don't worry about it. Why I have a third reason to wear a hat, and you'll find out if you use your Kinda Funny membership.
I like that.
Master of Hype.
To wear a hat.
A third reason to wear a hat. Master of Hype. Snow Mike.
I mean, it's probably because it's that dope KFAF hat, so
Green
you got to
hat.
give some
Green
respect
hat.
where it's
Green
at because
hat.
that's a sick hat. But Greg Miller with a dad hat. Have you become the coach of a small children's soccer or basketball team?
You'll have to find out.
Okay.
You'll have to find out. And rounding out the group, the best voice in the business, Paris Lily.
You know, I watched KFGD and I said, oh, wait, Blessing's wearing the XCast hoodie. Let me take mine off and put on something else. So I had to
sorry.
make a quick wardrobe change. No,
What are you
it's
wearing?
all
What are you
good.
wearing? Show. Let's see.
I had to get ahead of the backlash.
Actually,
Paris.
this is my work hoodie I'm
Okay.
wearing.
Oh.
Yeah, for my real job.
Man.
Since I'm not a full-time employee of Kinda Funny.
Don't say it like that, all right? You've given me your number before, all right? We need a few more patrons, a few more Kinda Funny members to come on over if you want Paris here full time, ladies and gentlemen. But I digress, of course. We can talk about that right now. Why not, right? Remember, this is the Kinda Funny Gamescast each and every week. 4, sometimes 5 best friends gather around this table, coming to talk about all the things they want to talk about in the video game world. Reviews, previews, major topics. We do it all live on YouTube, Twitch, and podcast services around the globe. If you like that, please support us with the Kinda Funny membership. $10 from you a month gets you all of our shows ad-free. The ability to watch us record the podcast, like the Kinda Funny podcast this very afternoon, live as we record them in the afternoon, and of course, my daily video and podcast, Greg Way. Again, why am I wearing the hat? There's a third reason to wear hats if you're Greg Miller. It's a big deal. We're adding a big one here.
What's
It's
under
a big
there?
deal. Nothing. It's just, I mean,
What could be the craziest
unkept
thing that's
hair.
under his hat right
Nothing.
now?
It's just, I mean, it's. You watch the show.
Your hair has great fluff to it right now. It's got a
Watch
great little
the fucking Greg Way, all
All
right?
right,
Be
well,
a
watch the
Kinda
Greg
Funny
Way.
member, get good karma, and of course, help keep Kinda Funny independent. I don't know if you know, it's rough out there for independent sites about video games, but I digress. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, for a chance to be part of this very show, which will be all about that Hellblade 2 review, be using your super chats. Give us your thoughts on the game if you're already playing it, your questions after reading other reviews, your questions after hearing our review as we go. Some housekeeping for you. Kinda Funny is an 11-person small business that's all about live talk shows. Today, you've already gotten the live reaction to the latest Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree trailer on Kinda Funny Games Daily. It's on YouTube, Twitch, and podcast services. Of course, up next, Sancho West joins the crew for some X-Defiant on YouTube and Twitch. If you're a Kinda Funny member, today's Greg Way is all about the power of the hat.
What does it mean?
You have
What
to
is he
find,
talking about?
Is this not alluring content? You know what I mean? It's not clickbait. It's about the fucking hat. I'll tell you why I'm wearing the hat for the third time. Third reason why to wear a hat.
Dad hats are cool.
Dad hats are cool. And of course, like I said at the top of the show, Kinda Funny podcast is this afternoon, tomorrow on YouTube and podcast services. Come find out what celebrities we pledge allegiance to. Unless Tim's fiance has puked in other restaurants, then we will have to cover that. We will have to cover that. Thank you for making our dreams a reality. Patreon producers Carl Jacobs, Fargo Brady, and Delaney Twining. Today, we're brought to you by BetterHelp, but we'll tell you about that later. For now, let's start with topic of the show. The day is finally upon us, ladies and gentlemen. Senua's Saga, Hellblade 2, is out. The review embargo is up. We have all played this game. Blessing, have you finished it?
I have finished it.
Paris, have you finished it?
I finished it twice.
Oh, you're crazy.
Snow Mike?
I have finished it.
Okay. I, of course, have finished it as well. So we are going to have a very fun conversation because, of course, a polarizing game so far. Reviews, this is a very exciting one for us as the Gamescast. This is our first major review where we're with the new Gamescast schedule. We're not trying to meet embargoes anymore. If there's a game that embargo that lifts, rather than be there when it lifts, which I think was 1 a.m. today or something crazy like that. We'll put it up at the normal time, 11 o'clock. We're live every day at 11, Gamescast. So we're talking. So we've had a chance to look and see the rest of the world react to it. When I pulled it together on Metacritic in 81, that was at 9 a.m. Seems to be there, but Game Informer 9, IGN 8, Forbes a 7, GameSpot a 6, VGC from Jordan 3 out of 5. Paris, I've seen your tweets. I already know you're high on it. Talk to me about Hellblade 2. What's your score? How are you feeling?
I'm going to start with the score, and I'm going to say 8 out of 10 feels about right for this game for me.
Got it. Which, of course, on the Kind of Funny scale is great.
Yep, is great. I love the game. It has flaws. It 100% has flaws in it. That, again, when you look at the reaction that people have had, I think they're valid. I'll start first and foremost with the puzzles. That was probably my most disappointing aspect of this coming up, because, you and I just played Senua Sacrifice, so that is fresh in my head coming to this one. Felt a lot of the same and no real evolution to the puzzles. I was able to figure them out in literal minutes and move on with my progress through the game. The other part that I did not like about it would have been the combat itself.
Sure.
In that, and we even talked to Dom. That was a question I was asking him because I was curious to see, was the combat going to evolve beyond what we had in the first game? And it really didn't. It does feel more brutal. I like that aspect of it, but I had to turn the difficulty up to hard to really feel an impact from it, to where I felt like I was getting some kind of challenge out of it. Those were probably my two biggest complaints that I had in the game. Now, what did I like about it? First and foremost, I mean, the visuals are off the charts. I mean, this on Unreal 5, on PC, on console, I mean, it's a very beautiful game from a visual standpoint. The audio in here, which is the reason to play this game. The audio is just next level. I love what they're doing with the audio in this game, not just from the voices, but just obviously when you're getting into these big, combat situations, the boss battles, things like that. I absolutely love that. Really did. The story. And this is like, I even saw someone go, well, why would you play through it twice? Trust me, there's a reason why I played through it twice. The story itself, you have to remember that Senua is suffering from psychosis. And when I rolled credits the first time, I had to question everything that she went through in that first playthrough. Did it actually happen? Is this all in her head? I wasn't 100% sure. And I think that's part of the point of it. Again, especially if you come off of the first game. So when I played it a second time, and this isn't a spoiler, it's you get a different narrator. So you're seeing it from another perspective. So I was fascinated to hear this from another perspective other than just Senua's perspective. And I felt that added something to it. And I'm not saying this that, you need to play it twice or 3 times or whatever to enjoy the game. This should be, to me, this is an experience that, sure, it's going to be about 6 to 8 hours that you're going to play. But Ninja Theory never promised us anything beyond that. So I was okay with that. But I enjoyed this for what it was, because I think, this is my opinion, this is an audio experience that is enhanced by the visuals of it. The gameplay, while it should have been better from a combat and a puzzle standpoint, do not get me wrong on that. I thought the audio experience of this was so strong that I really connected with the character of Senua. Like, I'm telling you right now, if Melina, I hope I'm saying her name correctly, if she does not win Performance of the Year in December, I'll be shocked, because that's how good it was. There was so much weight on her shoulders to carry this game, in my personal opinion, from an emotional stand, the range of emotions that she had, that, I enjoyed what I played. I really did. And I think Ninja Theory did a great job. Could have improved on some of the other aspects that I outlined, but overall, I truly enjoyed it.
All right. The opening salvo, an 8 from Paris. Blessing.
Greg.
I've seen your tweet this morning.
Yeah.
Not as glowing.
Yeah, I think for me, the thing that I unequivocally love about games like Hellblade 2 is that it is art, and it is unequivocally art, right? And I think the fact that it is doing the thing that Hellblade 1 did, right, which is, hey, we're doing something different, we're going hard on audio, like Paris mentioned, we are making a game that is narrative first and putting you into the shoes of Senua. I think all that is special, and so much of that comes through. I think when we talk about the art of video games, that art comes in so many forms that I think is going to make this conversation very fascinating, because I think game design in itself is an art, right? The reason why video games are art is because the interactivity as well in it is art. And the interactivity of Hellblade 2 is where the game lets me down. I think when we talk about the combat of it, the combat is so one note and so dull that there are moments where I'm like, all right, why do we even have combat, right? Like, it is one of those combat systems that is in service of the cinematic storytelling and is in service of creating tension. But the combat in and of itself is so, again, dull. And I found myself only engaging with combat in a way where it is, all right, let's parry, all right, on to the next thing. I never felt like there was any strategy or I think anything that was uniquely interesting or pulling me in or engaging about the combat. And that's one facet of the gameplay. The other facet of the gameplay are the puzzles. And I agree with Paris as well, where I think the puzzles are dull. And I think the thing that surprised me the most is how I feel like even compared to Hellblade 1, the puzzles take a step back in terms of how engaging they were. I remember loving the perspective puzzles in Hellblade 1 and being like, all right, if I stand here, they'll change this and that's going to change the environment. It's going to open up in this way. In this one, I was surprised by how often you would get the same type of runic puzzles as you would in Hellblade 1, where you would see like the runic symbol and you have to find those symbols in the environment. If I'm looking anywhere in the direction of where that symbol is in Hellblade 2, the game automatically snaps to it.
They dumbed it down, yeah.
Even if I, as a player, didn't notice that. And so we're in a situation where you're solving the puzzles for me. And for me, that, again, comes to the question of, all right, well, if you're going to do that, why do we even have these puzzles in this video game?
For sure.
And there are more puzzles outside of the runic stuff, right? Like I think there are clever stuff in terms of like changing how the environment is. And I think that stuff is cool in moments, but again, there's another one we're coming off of Alan Wake 2, another game that has a lot of similar elements in terms of changing the environment in order to figure out progression. I found that the way Hellblade 2 tackles it right now in May of 2024 is dampened by seeing games so recent do have similar ideas and run with it in ways that I think laps around what Hellblade 2 does with the puzzle stuff. And so I find that on the gameplay interactivity side of it, I was very let down by Hellblade 2 in comparison to Hellblade 1, which, I've talked about how much I love Hellblade 1. So there's that. On the story side of things, on the character development side of things, I had a good time. I wasn't blown away, and I wasn't as emotionally engaged with Hellblade 2 as I was with Hellblade 1. I remember Hellblade 1 having like those gut-wrenching moments of like, I keep wanting to call her Ayla, Senua, like, looking into the camera and like having these moments that I, as a player, am looking at and I'm like, damn, right? I remember the voices hitting for me so well in Hellblade 1. And I think, with a sequel, you come at sort of that disadvantage of, all right, we're following up on mechanics that might have surprised players in the previous game. Sure. And so for me, having the depiction of psychosis and being put in Senua's shoes in the sequel was a thing that didn't hit for me as much as that first one, because I already had that. And I think that the second one does, that are, new story beats, new characters, stuff like that. Again, I thought was cool. I thought was enjoyable, but didn't hit me in the way that Hellblade 1 did. And so I was kind of let down a little bit on that side too. The thing that I will say about Hellblade 2 that makes it very special and makes it very cool is a conversation that me and Mike were having earlier about who Ninja Theory is as a developer and their willingness to do something different, unique. The presentation of this game is out of this world. It is maybe the best looking video game I've ever played.
It is stunning.
Yeah, the environments
full
are
stop. Like
insane.
it is a gorgeous game that you stop and you look at. And I was playing it originally on my monitor, and I had to go to the TV. And Andy would come over. He's like, "What the fuck?" You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, holy shit! And that was on the Xbox Series X.
And you can tell that. I feel like they're dev diaries. I remember reading somewhere or watching somewhere about how they went out to, I think, Scandinavia to like capture the land. Iceland, thank you. They were in Iceland capturing like the land and like geometrically like mapping that stuff out for the game, and you can tell.
Yeah.
Like being in the environments in this game, it doesn't feel like a video game. It feels like you're actually like out there in somewhere that really exists, and that stuff comes through. And so I think the game does some really special things. In terms of score, I'm coming down on a 6.5 out of 10. For me, I think that's an okay on the Kind of Funny scale.
That is an okay.
I think it's very just imbalanced in the ways that I just talked about. But I think I still come around to what it does technologically is still so impressive and still so special, and that's what gets it up to a 6.5 for me. But I was very let down by the gameplay aspects, and the story just didn't hit as hard.
Mike.
Yeah.
The Xcast host, Mr. Xbox. What did you think of Hellblade 2?
Yeah, for me, I really loved this experience, and I'm actually giving it a 9 out of 10.
What?
Amazing. I am very high on this, and I think the big thing that speaks to this is not my style of game, right?
Yeah.
And I gave it a try, and I jumped into this, and I loved it a lot more than I enjoyed the first Hellblade.
Wow.
And I really resonated with a lot of things that Blessing and Paris said, which I'm excited to jump down and get a little bit deeper into
Jump
that.
down
So
on it.
I'll give you my basic stuff right now. On the presentation side, it was beautiful. It was gorgeous. It is probably the most incredible video game I've ever seen. This is one of those where I would like to grab my mom, my brother, and everyone I know and say, sit in front of this giant television, put on the headphones, and let me play this first hour for you, because you have to see what this team has done to push video games forward. You know, it's tough when we talk about video games and that gamey nature of playing the game and wanting to be engaged and immersed in this. I was immersed in this experience, and I think that's what really carried this for me, is like, I liked the puzzles and the combat being on the more basic side because I wanted to keep the experience moving forward and going. I never wanted to have a moment where I was stopped, rattled, and uptight that I couldn't solve a puzzle. I liked that they really made it clear of, you need to be in this area. You go stand in this area, we'll vibrate the controller. We'll put a bunch of red signs all over it, and we will drag your controller to it, because I wanted that experience to be moving forward. I liked seeing some of the cool environmental puzzle pieces of, hey, look at this. Now the perception changes, and you're in a different world, and the map is now open. I enjoyed the combat. I think a big question we asked on the Xcast a lot was, hey, how do you elevate this combat? It's very basic in one. What do you do? And they did that for me. They made it more visceral, more brutal, more close and personal. And I really enjoyed that. I wanted the combat to be more on the basic side. I wasn't looking for a difficulty spike in an Elden Ring. I wasn't looking for a combo-based Assassin's Creed. I wanted in your face. It felt like it's me and this person, and I need to dodge, parry, and take advantage of this. And man, the animations from deaths to kills were brutal and amazing. Like, there are moments where it was Lara Croft Tomb Raider all over again, taking the spike through the mouth, right? Of like,
Sure.
Man, I just stabbed that guy through the heart, or that guy just lit me on fire, and it's hard to watch. I loved all of that. On the audio side, man, I have never heard a game like this, where there are sounds coming from everywhere. They have the deepest of caves with the echoes and the small sounds of water hitting the top of a puddle, right? Like, the sound was absolutely phenomenal, right? And then on top of that, the vistas and the gorgeous areas. I mean, we're talking about, it felt like the first time watching Lord of the Rings, seeing these vistas. It was like, oh, wow, how did you capture this? How does it look so real? I have to stop and go into photo mode to capture the moss on the rock that you've created. How did you put this volcano in the background, but in the foreground there's trees, there's a puddle with reflections, there's this beautiful clay path. I'm in a cave, and the light coming off of my torch, the embers falling off the side, the dust coming all around me. There was just moments that was like, man, this team got it, and they understood what they wanted. There are many ways where I could have said, man, this team with this presentation and this audio should have just made an Uncharted or Last of Us. That's what would have sold gangbusters. But this team stuck to their guns. They made a game and a story that they wanted to tell, which I dug, right? It was about hope. It was about belief in yourself. It was about trusting others. And I was alongside of that. For me, my small complaints were I had some lip syncing issues that kind of threw it off. I felt like out of the 4 main characters you'll meet throughout this, one of their character models was not up to snuff with the other 3 that I thought were drop dead gorgeous and incredible, right? And I feel like that small attention to detail should have been addressed. It was odd to me that one of them didn't look as good, but I had no problems with this. I actually really enjoyed this and look back on this going, this was a great experience for me.
So, as Paris said at the top of the show there when he was talking, right, we just did a Hellblade re-review for 2024, right? And it was me and Paris. Paris gave it an 8. I gave it a 6.5, an okay on the kind of funny scale. And I talked at length about how I've tried over the years to connect with this game, and it hasn't worked. And so to go through and beat Hellblade 1, getting ready for this one, it was that it's a gorgeous game and it sounds so good, but I did not like the combat. The puzzles were fine. It was a game that I sat there and I said, I'm giving it a 6.5 and okay on our scale, because I would never say this is a good game. I think this game does a lot of art things. This game does a lot of amazing, impressive things that really, you look at Ninja Theory, you go, what a bunch of talented folks over there, right? But it doesn't push that into like being an amazing game, a good game, a game that I would say you got to go play, right? Like, I feel like that's how I feel about Hellblade 1. coming into Hellblade 2, last week we did the interview with Dom. Paris, we both had the question. You got to it first of what about combat? He's like, it's combat from the ground up. We really wanted to change that. And I got so excited, right? Of like, oh my God, they're addressing it. Sitting down, popping on the headphones, playing on the Series X, playing on the big TV, getting in there, being stunned by these visuals, getting into that first combat encounter. And it is not... It's solving one of the main complaints I had, which was, oh man, like before it was so annoying to get into these just rooms full of monsters and they're just coming at me, and it's not hard, the combat's not difficult, but I'm getting hit because I'm getting attacked from behind or something like that. They do a very interesting thing where you fight multiple people in Hellblade 2 at once, but you're really only fighting one-on-one ever. Like, I don't remember them ever actually doing another person. It was always them. They do beautiful animations of people running in, shoving your other opponent out of the way to fight you, jumping on your back, so now you spin around, you're fighting them. Just breathtaking capture work here of what it is and choreography, right? And, Tim walked over and he's like, first 30 minutes, he's like, so how is it? And I'm like, dude, this is so impressive what they're doing here. It seems like they've answered my questions, You get to the other end of the 7-hour journey there, and I am left exactly where I was with Hellblade 1, where I think this is a 6.5. Like, this is an okay video game. It is gorgeous, and it's technically wonderful, and the performances are great, and the mocaps, all of that is true. But when it is, you are at the sticks, it is so dull. I just, okay, now we've removed the annoyance for Greg of people attacking you, but then you're just into this combat system that is just, I can be half asleep playing it, right? Where and they changed the parry window. I saw other reviewers complain about this. I told you in a conversation where I'm like, I'm not the parry poppy, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not that guy, but I
don't
still
like how it feels.
They're doing something here, and you were like, I think they might be making it cinematic, where even if you parry right, sometimes they're still making it seem like you didn't or whatever.
I think so. Yep.
And so again, like, that's a choice that I get to make these feel like every battle's by the skin of your teeth kind of thing. But really, as a player, it would just annoy me. Like, well, what did I do wrong? Or did I do something wrong? Did I not do anything wrong? And so, honestly, at the end of the game, like, we're talking the final, 2 battles and then the final boss battle. Not because of difficulty at all, but because I went in and checked. I was like, this is interesting. I let the game play itself. And I just watched it happen. Because you can do it where you can go in and set combat too. You don't even play combat. They'll just play it and fight it for you. And it was the thing of watching it and, okay, she parried there, and they did do the attack. So, no, it wasn't on me. That's what's going on, blah, blah. But doing that and being like, I'm getting more out of this than I was doing it. Because doing it, all I'm thinking of, like, this isn't fun. This isn't a fun way to play this game, right? And watching it, I was fine. And I think that was one of the things that I was like, again, in this very interesting, cool new world of the Daily Gamescast, able to go read what people are saying about it, right? And over on GameSpot, Jessica Cogswell and hers is lined up perfectly with me, right? Based on its new naming convention and the use of Saga in Hellblade 2's title, and Microsoft's acquisition of Ninja Theory following the success of Senua's Sacrifice, it seems as if Hellblade is stated to be a series as well as a staple in Xbox's first-party lineup. That said, at this point, I don't exactly understand where the series is headed, if not to the box office. There are plenty of games that prove games can be art, but as some studios lean harder into proving that one specific way, as the studios lean harder into proving that in one specific way that cribs from Hollywood, we're seeing some games that feel afraid of being games. With too much focus on cinematics and too little on creating an experience that is engaging, Senua Saga fails to reach the same highs as its predecessor, even if it looks stunning whilst trying. Like, that nails it for me. Of, like, Hellblade 1, I think I talked about this in the review. Every time I would put it down, I was never like, gotta get back to it. I'm excited to get back to it. Oh, yeah. And Hellblade 2, early on, I had that of like, I'm going to play at home. Oh, I want to do this. But like, as the story goes, it gets in, I think it takes a turn into like, oh, okay, this could be interesting. It is interesting. But then it's like, it's going to get grand, but it's actually still small. I was like, oh, okay. When like the quest is revealed of where we're going after what the initial, quest is, it's like, oh, this feels like I'm about to set off on a 20 or 30 hour game. And you're not. You're already halfway through the game. It's like, this is all bizarre. And so it's just a bunch of stuff that doesn't work for me. Like, I did not enjoy playing it. The puzzles are fine. Like, none of it's broken. None of it's bad. But it's just like, I feel like this is a game I put down in because of when I was offered game to play the game versus watching the game, it brought down the other stuff of the performances of the story they were trying to tell, and I didn't feel a connection to it. And so it's very much a game that I beat last week and I haven't thought much about. Paris, your hand has been up. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's because you bring up a bunch of valid points, which is why
I always do.
Oh, wow. Okay, here we go. But that's why I sit at 8 out of 10 versus being a little higher on it than Mike, as Mike is, I should say, because you bring game length into it, because that was another nitpick that I had. Not that, oh my God, this game needs to be 20 hours. It's that, yeah, this being about a 6 to 8 hour experience is probably right. But at the same time, I feel like I wanted more. But with the current game mechanics, it really would have overstayed its welcome. It really would have been just way more repetitive if this was a 12, 15, 20 hour experience. So,
which is heartbreaking that it's so repetitive at 7 hours.
Yeah.
I agree. But this brings the question into me. This is just why I'm curious what you think and what everyone else thinks. Did we really want Ninja Theory to stray too far away from what they did in the original game from a gameplay standpoint? Again, I wanted, a more evolution of the combat. I wanted more evolution of the puzzles, but at what point? But how far could they have pushed that and still stay true to what was Hellblade? I guess is my question. Whereas I do think they should have done more, but how much more should they have done? To your point about the combat, where you said you just kind of at the end let it just do its thing, and you almost watched it as a cinematic experience. I want a game still. I want to be able to play 100%. A game. I want to control it, because I forget who said this, but someone was comparing this to Dragon's Lair back in the 80s, right? Remember that? Space Ace, where, it's just, I press this direction or that direction, but essentially you're just watching a movie. I didn't feel Hellblade was that. I felt it was more than that. I felt I did have more control over the game than that. But it does bring into what you're saying, and then what Jessica said in her review as well. Is this more of just a cinematic movie than a game? I want a game. If I'm making sense, I feel like I'm not making sense, but I want the game part of this. Whereas I don't think Ninja Theory took it far enough to give everybody a satisfactory game experience.
And that's kind of why I start off my portion of the review with talking about like the games as art things. I think unequivocally again, like Hellblade 2 is art, and it's trying to be art. But Mike, funny enough, had this exact conversation yesterday where Mike on his way out was talking about like, so like, what do you think, whatever. And I'm like, I was kind of talking through it. I think Mike was like, what are you going to give it? I was talking through it, and I was just like, like I feel like the combat's not working for me, and like feels dull and feels very understated, and the puzzles aren't working for me and they feel understated. And so what's left is just the story experience, the narrative experience. And so I am left with a similar thing of, then why isn't this a movie? Why isn't this a book? Why isn't this an audio experience? What about this as a video game makes it special as a video game? And that's not me saying that narrative games shouldn't exist or anything like that. But I think even with narrative games, I look at something like Gone Home, and the special thing about Gone Home is that I am free to explore this house, and I'm picking up the things, and I'm like looking at the scenery, and I'm doing things, and there's the stories being told by the way that I'm playing the game. Hellblade, I feel like if the point of it is to be this narrative experience, the point of it is to be about Senua's journey and not about the combat and not about the puzzles, then why is there the combat and why is there the puzzles and why isn't it a thing where I'm looking around the world? Like, I think there's something there in terms of how they could level it up if they double down on combat. It is this weird, conundrum that you're in, because it is also a 6, 7, 8 hour video game. And so how are you going to build a combat system that feels worthwhile, that feels like you're leveling up? Do you add leveling up? Do you keep it to the same thing? But then also, how do you introduce people to a combat system in a game that's so short? And so like they don't have a tutorial in this game, they just throw you into it. I think there's so many issues you'll run into when you have the story that you want to tell in this concise of a way. And I think on the story side, I think they succeed in a lot of it. But then on the gameplay side, I just don't think they figure it out.
Yeah, that's the interesting spot of where I'm at. It's like the experience of it all is there, right? Are we looking for this to be what was this team looking to build? The game part is the issue where people are going to get lost. It's like, this is a video game. I want it to be gamified, where this is an experience. This is put on the headphones and take a ride along with them. This is hop in the boat with Kratos, and we're going to watch this story unfold, and you're going to take part in a couple of pieces of this, but you're not going to play that much of this. And I enjoyed that. There was moments where it was so cinematic, it was a movie, but all of a sudden I got to move. I wasn't ready to move because I'm getting lost in the sauce of it all, and I had to snap out of it going, oh, geez, I'm supposed to be playing right now. And I think that's the wow factor to me, is it's something different, right? I'm not come into this Hellblade 2 going, I'm looking for the most gamified game here. I'm looking for an experience. I'm looking to see what this team is doing, because for the past 5 years, they've been promoting, hey, we're taking the visuals to the next level. We're working so in depth with the audio. You're never going to see this before. And they nailed all of that for me. And that's what I wanted out of this experience.
I hear you, and I think this is obviously back to, first off, art. Everybody's going to take something different away, and I've seen people in the chat, well, what did you, even Paris was like, what do you do to make it this and that? I don't fully believe that Ninja Theory's heart's in the combat. That's my thing, right? So then why do the combat? Why not have it be, when you, first off, dial it back, because it is still, oh man, there's this giant fight and I got to fight through 7 different guys or whatever, what's happening. Do a really nice cutscene, because the fucking cutscenes are gorgeous and the game's beautiful. Do that and have it be, exploration or doing the thing. I mean, like walking sims, I saw people talking about over there, right? And I'm like, Greg loves walking sims. Why wouldn't he like this? It's because this isn't all the way in on that. I feel like that's the problem with this game, is that it's like, it's half in, half out on what it is and what it wants to be. It clearly wants to be an experience. It clearly wants to be, we are going to rock you with audio. Use headphones. They say it right at the front. You should use headphones. It's awesome. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be this. But if you just want to tell me the story, then just tell me the story. Don't feel bad about that. Like, let's figure out a way to strip out and then really set expectations for where it is. Because again, it's not that I get there and it's like, I'm just bored by the gameplay. Like, the gameplay isn't doing it for me, right? Like, I don't, like, it's just not happening the way I want it to, because it's not enjoyable to do.
And I think you have to critique it because it's there.
Of course. You got to judge what the game is, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And also, I mean, it's funny because the idea of like it being a tech demo was popping into my mind as I was playing the game, right? I don't mean that as like a pejorative or anything, but I mean that more so in just the idea of the way they showcase tech in this game is so impressive that I think it does the job of a tech demo better than any tech demo I've ever played, right? Like, it's like this in Astrobot in a way where I'm like, I didn't know games could look this good on Xbox Series X, and playing it on a console at home with the black bars on the top and bottom in that widescreen mode, it looks fucking fantastic. And everything about presentation in this game, I think, is maybe what's going to stand the test of when we get to the end of the year and we're doing the end of the year awards and we're talking about games at the end of the year. Because as I go through my notes, everything that's about presentation is a superlative. I talk about the performances are fantastic. And Paris touched on it before, but Melina's performance as Senua is incredible. The soundtrack is gorgeous. The soundtrack has moments in the game where I'm like, man, this is fucking incredible. The environments, like we mentioned before, look so great. The cinematography is fantastic. Is it one shot all the way throughout? Because I didn't notice any cuts.
I thought at beginning, I thought it was going to be one shot, but I think there is some cuts.
There's some cuts.
They do that thing where like they'll bring the camera up into the trees and show passage of time and come back down. I don't know if that counts or not. I saw one review call out that, of course, it is.
I don't know if the entire thing is a one shot, but it has that same kind of vibe. It's like when you're playing God of War 2018 or Ragnarok, where the camera kind of stays with you and they do very clever things with cutting to different locations with that. And that stuff is done extremely well. Like, I really like it as a produced, and it's tough because I almost want to be like it's a better film or better like experience like that than it is a video game. But I do think that's where I come from.
I will go 100% and say that again. Like, if I was, it's a weird one, right? Like, you brought up the different narrator, right? Which is no spoilers, but you can do a different narrator when you beat it, right? Like, it is that idea of like, I have half a mind to try that and just leave the auto combat on, but then even then it would still be like, I don't know if auto puzzles are on. It's like, again, like, it's just not working as a game, which when I sit down, I want to participate in what I'm doing, right? I feel like watching someone stream it or watching a compilation or whatever might go there. But again, even that said, I feel the deeper we got, the more the story kind of went, oh, okay. Like, for me, in terms of like, okay, we get there, we introduce, there's a character you introduce that you're with, and I'm like, oh, this is really cool. And then it's another and another. And I'm like, all right, well, like, these other people are fine, but then I know what it's what we're talking about in terms of the short game, right? Which is not a negative. I don't think the length of the game is a negative.
I like the length.
It's the idea that when you start adding these people in, I'm like, oh, well, now you're pulling on my own experiences in fiction of like, oh, well, you want me to care about this person just because they're with us or whatever. And did we really get there? Did we really justify that? No, I don't remember that. I right now don't remember any of these guys' names. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I remember their roles, but yeah, Paris.
But see, that's, again, when we talk about game versus experience, this is why I think we're all in agreement. Ninja Theory was pushing for this to be an experience. I am convinced after playing this game twice, which is why I wanted to play it a second time, none of this happened. And this ain't a spoiler. This is, she's suffering through psychosis. Sure. What is real? What is not real? I don't think any of this happened. I think the characters that she met weren't really there.
Yeah.
I truly believe that as I played through the boss battles. Did they happen? Maybe, kind of, sort of. Don't really. There's one section of the game where she gives up the sword, like puts it in the thing, and then you go through this whole other section, and then you conveniently get the sword back. I think that's her mind. That's her. I need this back now, so now it's conveniently back here so that I can use it. That's where I take the experience of it, the story of it, the narrative of it, the audio experience that they're presenting to you, because constantly these whispers are happening in your ear and they're conflicting each other, and the darkness is in the background saying another thing that I truly appreciated and enjoyed about what Ninja Theory was attempting here with Senua's Saga. So I 100% understand the critiques, the complaints about gameplay, because they are valid, but I also think the experience that they gave us in there kind of trumps it in a way that I want. This is why I recommend people, regardless of what the score is or whatever, play it, go through this experience, because I do think there is something there for you to enjoy. I really do. And especially, again, with dealing with psychosis, dealing with mental health, that is an aspect that we just simply don't see enough in gaming.
Yeah, but this is tough, right? Because again, like everything you just said, Paris, right? Is it real? Is it not? Is a conversation we also had about Hellblade 1, right? And it's because it is psychosis. My thing about all of this is I'm trying not to spoil it, right, and get around it or whatever. Right. But it's like, does it really have anything to say about that? Like, it's letting you, it's worked with Cambridge, it's done all the stuff, it's trying to represent psychosis in a video game, right? So I get the voices and I get not knowing what's real, but when I get to the end of this story, even Hellblade 1, I wasn't like, wow, you really said something here about this and changed the way it was just, no, this is all cool tech, and it's interesting that like you're so upfront of like, oh yes, this is psychosis, this is what it's like for so many people. But we get to the end and it's not like I felt on either of these projects that I walked away like I have a different understanding of someone dealing with this. Am I wrong? Am I alone in that?
I think that's. I think it's very interesting, because Hellblade 1, I think I was more invested in as almost more of an emotional experience than a narrative experience. Like, I was following along with the narrative, and I enjoyed the story, but I think it was just what she was going through and how they were putting us in those shoes that really drove it home. And I think the things to add in with Hellblade 1 too, because we want to talk about the combat and puzzles and all that stuff and how that feeds in, right? Like, I mentioned that the puzzles in this game feel a bit more hand-holdy than the ones in the first one. There's also the aspect in the first game, and maybe this applies to mainly just the way I played, where early on they lie to you in Hellblade 1, and they imply that if you lose too many times, you're going to lose your save data. And for me, that added so much tension into the overall experience, where even though the combat wasn't as complex, the combat was also a thing that I had issues with in the first one. That added level, at the very least, had me way more engaged, where I'm like, okay, but I'm not going to die. Like, I can't die too many times because the rod is going to go all the way and like fucking kill me. And so all of that added to feeling, and all of that added to emotion. Whereas Hellblade 2, again, I'm kind of on the same level in terms of the beat to beat what's happening in the story, but I'm also missing the emotional resonance that I had with Hellblade 1. I don't know if that's just like the way they present things, the things that happen. There's also like an element of FMV that they have in Hellblade 1 that they don't have at all in Hellblade 2.
I missed it.
Yeah, and like I kind of missed that too, right? I think there's so much that they're throwing at you in that first game to kind of catch you off guard, whereas Hellblade 2 kind of, keeps it a bit more even, and I think part of that is just where Senua was at in her journey, because, Hellblade 1 was so fucking taxing. Hellblade 2 is coming after that. Maybe she's healed a little bit, and so I don't think they're going as wild with that stuff. But yeah, like I didn't feel it, which is kind of a weird way to talk about it in terms of narrative or whatever, right? Because narrative you want to talk about, was the story good? The story here is so cerebral and so amorphous that I don't really care about talking about the story. More so, I'm like, did it work for me emotionally? Did I feel what Senua was going through, or did I feel something by the time I finished this game? And I will say the ending worked for me. The last 20 minutes of the game, I really enjoyed what was happening, and I really felt the note that it ended on. But through most of the game, I just didn't have that emotional resonance.
Mike, what about you with emotional resonance and having something to say?
Yeah, I mean, having something to say, it didn't feel like, to me, I walked away having a better understanding of mental health and maybe the issues that they were going to portray in this that I thought they would. But I did walk away going, man, I liked a lot of the messaging, right? I think we have a more matured Senua who has grown and now needs that belief from others and in herself. And like I said at the beginning of this, I felt like we saw that. There was moments there where I was like, oh man, I really like what you've done there. And I like how she is now empowering not only herself, but others, right? And I kind of see that moment. You see those moments go through, and she is the light. And I think I believed that. I was in that for the whole ride. And I resonated with that of like, here's someone, if you've gone through Hellblade 1 into 2, you've seen now grow. You've seen a moment turning in this story that it's really tough to not spoil, right? But like, there are moments here where it's like, yep, I see this. It's happening live in front of me, and I believe in that.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we believe in you. And if you believe in us, you should get the Kinda Funny membership. Of course, with the Kinda Funny membership, you can watch all of our programming, every show we do, and we do a lot ad-free. Of course, you get the ability to watch us record the afternoon podcast, like today's Kinda Funny podcast, live as we record them, and you'd get the daily multimedia experience Greg way for your listening and viewing pleasure. But guess what? You're not using your Kinda Funny membership right now, so here's a word from our sponsor.
This episode's brought to you by BetterHelp. We all carry around different stressors, big and small. I'm currently planning a wedding, so I know all about that. But when we keep them bottled up, it can start to affect us negatively. Therapy helps you find your strengths so you can ditch the extreme resolutions and make changes that really stick. You can get out of your negative thought cycles and find some mental and emotional peace, and it can give you the tools to find more balance in your life so you can keep supporting others without leaving yourself behind. Some of my best friends use BetterHelp and love how helpful it can be for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself, and it isn't just for those who've experienced major trauma. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapist at any time for no additional charge. Celebrate the progress you've already made. Visit betterhelp.com/kindafunny today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/kindafunny.
And we're back. Remember, if you want to be a part of this show, all you have to do is super chat over on youtube.com/kindafunnygames like Onimus Prime did. I get combat's not the focus, but how do you have the studio who did the DMC reboot, Heavenly Sword, and Enslaved, and have it so bare bones in both games?
I have a question, a follow-up question to this, actually.
Okay.
And I might already have an answer in my brain, but I'll still put it out to you.
Okay.
This game, Hellblade 2, in terms of what it's doing in tone, what it's doing in subject matter, what it's doing in terms of how serious it is as a story it wants to tell, would having a combat system like Devil May Cry be fucking insane? Like, you know, the cinematic approach to the combat is totally appropriate for the kind of story they want to tell. Is there a balance there? Like, is God of War the answer? Like, what is...
I don't think any of those are the answer. And so the answer to the question, right, is like, and have it be so bare bones in both games, because again, like it or hate it, all art should be like that. This is their vision. I don't think anybody got in the way of what Ninja Theory's vision was for this. They believed in this combat system, in this puzzle system, and they ran with it, right? And so that's what they wanted this to be. Would God of War's combat system have been better? It would have been different, right? And I think, again, this game, you know, is it real? Is it fake? Is it all in her head? Is it not? Like, is so grounded, right? And obviously, no spoilers for this one, but last one, right? We get into all sorts of monsters and we're talking to Hela and all, you know, I mean, like, shit's out there. But it is grounded in the way that you are still just Senua, right? Like, you are just there, boots on the ground, trying to survive with your sword. Like, I like that. I enjoy that aspect of it.
And that's the thing about the combat that I think is fascinating. Because, you know, I name drop God of War because you could say God of War is a serious story as well. Yeah.
Sure.
But God of War at the end of the day is still
a god.
Yeah, you're a fucking god and you're a fucking superhero and you have like this a head on your waist that's making jokes the entire time. Like, it's just totally a different game. Like, when we get action games, most action games have this level of levity and goofiness, and you know, there's a pulp to it because it's action, you're jumping around, you're doing all this shit. As Nathan Drake, you're fucking gunning down 100 people because that's the tone of the story. Hellblade, in the tone, it's grounded, right? It is gritty, it is realistic to what like a fantasy Norse, you know, realistic thing is.
Yeah.
It is realistic. And so I'm almost of the mind, you mentioned this is Ninja Theory's vision, and I believe that, but I'm almost of the mind of like, hey, like don't feel like you have to do combat, right? Like it's just because it's a video game doesn't mean that you have to do video gamey things. Just as long as it is interactive in a way that is more engaging, like don't feel like you have to force the combat. Not every single video game needs combat.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting one right there. I like the combat for what it is, for the story that it is, for the tone of it all. I think it fits very well. I think they elevated the combat from 1 to 2 in a way that I preferred. I did not like the combat in 1. It always felt like I was in this little puzzle cage and it was just the same guys with the deer heads coming after me. Like, I liked all of the enemy variety in this. They felt very humanoid most of the time, and it felt cool to see them live and in person, and like it felt different than the first one in a good way for me.
I thought that wore off real quick, though.
Really?
Yeah.
No, I liked every moment. I liked as well, if you die, sometimes the fight scenario will play out differently, of people bumping into you, certain fights now coming at you, you approaching another one in a different way. And I always felt like if I was at the disadvantage, I appreciated the mirror being on my hip, where I could build up the mirror and I could break it and I could stop time and get out of that fight. Every single one of those felt like my freebie get out of jail card. Is this guy punishing me too hard? Is the fire, I can't read the fire right now and I'm getting blown on there and I'm dying? Is that guy axing me too many times, I just can't dodge it? Hey, I got the mirror on my hip. I appreciated that because I liked it. I liked dodging. I liked that they had the dodge in there. It felt cool to have the one-step dodge. It felt good to have the double dodge where she would roll on the ground and get around that person. The counter was good. I think I agree with you, Bless. There was moments where it didn't feel quite right, but for what I wanted, it felt good enough of like, I could counter that. And of course, these enemies are way stronger than Senua, right? So it's like there are moments where your counter doesn't really matter. They're going to push through you and you're going to get fallen back and you're going to have to reset. So I liked that.
And again, something you mentioned at the very top in your piece that I don't think we've doubled back to, and I do want to compliment, right, is that, like, again, I did not enjoy the combat here. I did not feel like I needed to play it. I did not feel like this was fun. And granted, are all games fun? No, but like in this moment where I'm hitting buttons, I should be like satisfied, and I'm not satisfied with it. However, death animations, kill animations, the animations they do where you're fighting someone and they pull you, or they put that all was like, wow, this actually is really cool. But that was another one where I felt like 3 or 4 fights in, then the seams start to show of like, oh, okay, this is every fight. It seemed cool and it was different in the front. Now I'm going to do this forever because this is, again, a one-trick pony kind of thing on what we're doing with it. Jordan Midler over at VGC, friend of the show, of course, put in his synopsis of his 3 out of 5 review something else I thought that spoke to what we're talking about, at least some of us. Hellblade 2 is a mechanically dated game carried by its incredible presentational flair. I think that was another, go back to what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Of like, it's why put the combat in there? This is the vision for the combat, but like, it doesn't feel up to snuff with any of its competitors around. So if you have such strong stuff surrounding it, why feel like you have to do it?
Yeah.
I digress. Let's go to another question over here. Let's go to just a review from Docs the Fox. Of course, super chat, youtube.com/kindoffunnygames, just like you can. It says, Melina deserves an award for her performance here. She was incredible. Combat was super visceral. Also, shout out to the dads with kids. Shorter games are welcomed. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Well, shout out to anybody with kids, whether you're a dad, mom, or someone else. You know what I mean? Short games are great for anybody, even if you don't have kids as well. Again, I think early on when we were talking about it, people started trying to bring in the length as if we were complaining about it, which we never were, right? Cozy Bear comes up and says, just because a game's short doesn't make it bad. This is super chat. Does Hellblade 2's shortness feel appropriate for the story Ninja Theory wanted to tell?
Yeah, it was right on the money. It's a little two-parter. You can beat it in 2 nights or maybe make it 3 depending on your playtime. But I really enjoyed that there's an Act 1, Act 2, we're in the finale. Like, it felt very clear of where we were going. I think there is a moment in the middle where I was kind of like, man, we're doing this one more time, but okay. But then like at the end when you get the final reveal and you go, oh, okay, like this is the understanding of who these things are, what we're doing. I liked that. Nice little wrap up.
I think it's worth calling out too that Hellblade 2 is a $50 game. It's not like a $60 or $70 thing.
It's on Game Pass as well.
It's on Game Pass as well.
Get it, yeah. Moving on here, another super chat. Unless Paris, do you have anything to say about the length? You were happy with it?
No, yeah, where I thought it was appropriate.
Ooh, diddly ooh. To me, the combat / puzzles don't bring the game down. Those things are for quote unquote games. To me, this is not a quote unquote game. It's a narrative experience.
See, this is where I'm going to push back again when we just talk about things that we're critiquing.
Please.
I do feel they could have done. I'm like, look, the puzzles didn't need to be freaking Cocoon. I'm not saying that, but they could have done more with the puzzles, and that doesn't take away from the experience that Ninja Theory is trying to take us on through this. Sure, the combat could be what it was, but I do think they could have given us a little more of a challenge, make us think a little more with the puzzle design. There was one where I was kind of, but even then, it only took me a few minutes to figure it out. And then I was, moving on throughout the game. So that would probably be my biggest pushback in this, that it still wouldn't have taken away from anything to have had more challenging puzzles at all.
Yeah, and I think, there were a few in there that I found enjoyable. And again, it's similar to one of the positives I gave Hellblade 1 of walking into these big arenas and be like, oh man, I could easily get lost in here and fuck up this puzzle. And I didn't, because it was so intelligently designed. Same thing here, where it was, oh man, like I need to go all the way, like basically a spiral over to that part over there by this cave. But when I got over there, I went for the treasure. And so now I'm like, oh shit, fuck, what do I need? It never happened. I was always able to get myself, I may get turned around, like, wait, what do I need to do? But I'd figure it out and get there. But then like the rune puzzles are a different story, I feel, for what you're getting out of it.
Yeah, I've been seeing the sentiment of, Hellblade 2 isn't a game, it's a narrative experience. And so I'm able to look past like the puzzles and the combat and stuff. I'm curious on where that comes from. Is it because Hellblade 2 tells a unique story? Because like the balance of cutscene to combat to puzzles is like any other game, right? Like that's the thing that I don't buy. I think just because the combat and the puzzles are a problem for people, it doesn't automatically go, like you don't automatically go, but that stuff doesn't matter. It's just a story. Because you can say that about any game, right?
That's interesting.
I think it's the people who are reading these reviews or have already played it, right, and have their literal scale, not a review scale, but a scale, right? Where to them the story, characters, whatever, outweigh the problems of this.
And that's fair.
Fair. And everybody's
I have those games as well.
Interpret and review however you want to. I don't buy it. It's a video game. It's on Xbox Game Pass, not Xbox Narrative Pass. So it's like I am on the panel. No offense, I don't know fully Paris's things, but like I assume that I am the fucking king of the Greg games of the narrative walking sim visual novel. Oh, it's a girl going through adolescent angst. Like I love that shit. I wish this game was more honed in and focused on. No, it's just it's a Telltale game with beautiful graphics or something where you're not doing the fighting. We're just going to focus on the story and what's going on in your relationships. Like I would prefer that, because I don't feel like it is good at what it does with combat and puzzles, so stop doing that.
Yeah, and I think for me, the games that I look at as narrative experiences that I still love, things like Immortality or things like Life is Strange, True Colors, those are still video games, right? Like there's gameplay to Immortality, the arranging and finding and like queuing in on the keywords. That is gameplay. Life is Strange, walking around the town, talking to people, making decisions. That is gameplay. Feeling their feelings as well. And
she's an empath. She sees your colors. It's like a mood ring.
Yeah, like it's all gameplay, and so I think it still has to come into conversation, especially when you have as many puzzles and as much combat factored in as Hellblade 2 does.
So Paris, I know you've been trying to go.
Yeah. It's the life of a remote person on this, but my thing is, I feel like because the visuals are so top end, the sound design is so top end, the performance is so top end, you almost want to excuse some of the weak points of the game, which is the combat and the puzzles. And that's kind of where I am, just on a personal level. Those portions of the game were so freaking good that I am happy that I had this experience playing the game. And then I go, sure, this could have been better, that could have been better, but I'm happy that I was a part of it, that I got to do it. So much so, obviously, I played it twice at this point, right? So I think it does the job of what a video game is supposed to do. And all of this stuff that we're talking about right now is very subjective, clearly, just looking at the reviews right now. But for me, it did the job. It did what I needed it to do to have an enjoyable experience. So again, I will give kudos to Ninja Theory on those aspects of the game. But sure, there's things they could have improved.
Speaking of Ninja Theory, we have a super chat from Nico. Nico! It's a GTA 4 reference. Now that Hellblade 2 is out, do you think Ninja Theory or any studio ever acquired by Xbox has become a stronger studio since Microsoft bought them?
Oh.
Michael, I want to kick to you. Do you think that you played this game and you were like, oh, clearly Ninja Theory is on another level because of Xbox?
I would hope so. I would assume so. In my mind, yes, they have, right? They got the support and backing and hopefully the dollars to allow them as much time as needed to make this their perfect game
7
and their
years.
perfect vision, right? Like, I think you look at this, right? And for me, this is going to be something that we talk about in my mind of when we talk about great games that push the medium forward, that are amazing. Hellblade 2 will come up in that conversation. But what I always say, right, is like Xbox needs a third-person narrative adventure that sets the tone, like an Uncharted and The Last of Us. This is not that, right? And so we're going to look at this, walking away going, I think globally, worldwide gamers, people are not going to give this the love that it deserves and check it out and experience this and what they've done. But I think Xbox gave them, hopefully, the platform and the stability, most importantly, to say, hey, take as much time as you need. You're still open for business and alive here. And that's a big deal for me.
Before you get off the hot seat, my next question is, do you think, or do you worry? This was not a universal 10 out of 10 game of the year. Oh my God, they crushed it. Do you worry about Ninja Theory in light of what we've seen with Xbox and layoffs and stuff?
No, not at all. I don't worry because, of course, we did hear earlier that they have been approved for their next one, so they will keep making games. If I was to be in a worry, it would be a different worry of what should be happening is I would go in there and say, hey, you guys have the tech. You have the vision. You do great stuff. Now make me an Uncharted like that. Make me a game that people want to play, like everybody's bringing up with gameplay, but still keep the visual and audio. Figure it out. That's what I would tell them.
Okay.
But like, isn't
Can
that
you answer that question?
Yeah, please, Paris.
And to the second part of what he just said, excuse me.
Let's clear his throat. It's going to be a big one.
Theory. Yeah, I don't think Ninja Theory is in trouble or anything. I think they're fine to answer that part of the question. But we obviously know the reality of what's happened in the last few weeks, you know, with some of the Bethesda studios. And then we've heard the quote that Matt Booty said. And I think this is probably the type of game that he's talking about in the sense of it's a smaller game that will probably be award winning and be prestigious, right? But I think the one thing that Ninja Theory, whatever their next one's going to be, is they can't I shouldn't say they can't, because clearly they gave them the time to do it, but they probably wouldn't want as long of a development cycle for the next game to come from them. You want the visuals, you want the audio, whatever, if it's going to wind up being a sequel to this, but they probably don't want them to take 5 years to get this game out. They probably want it in, 3 years as an example. But I think this is the type of experiences now that Xbox has so many studios under their watch, that not everything has to be the big AAA high seller, but you want things that people are going to be talking about, because regardless of the scores or whatever, we're talking about it. People will be talking about this game. And like I said, Melina for sure is probably going to win some awards for this, for her performance, but they're probably going to get awards for sound design, things like that, technical achievements and all of that. So it did the job in that sense. So no, I don't think Ninja Theory goes away, and you want to see what they're going to do next.
And if they're not safe, what are we doing?
What are we doing?
That's my point.
Is that not the same thing
It's like,
as
if they're
Arcane
not safe,
Austin?
what are we doing?
Like we're coming off of Arcane Austin and Tango Gameworks, and it was the same thing of like them not being safe. I think even the opposite. The options that are on the table all depress me. Like, you mentioned, Mike, towards the end of the of your statement that, you as Xbox, you look at them and go, make something that's like Uncharted, or make something. I think you don't look at it, you don't acquire a studio like Ninja Theory to then go, hey, make an Uncharted or make something, make a Horizon, make a God of War. And I think
that's what Phil has done this whole time, is he's held off doing that, right? But there's a moment here where we've all kind of looked and gone, maybe you should be saying that. Maybe it's time to step up and be like, stop doing that.
Like, isn't that squandering what Ninja Theory is as a studio?
I agree, but we're getting to a moment. You just brought up,
but this is the problem
Tango,
with
right? They made
consolidation.
Hi-Fi. That's not people around the globe celebrate that, but it's not a massive mainstream game. It didn't do the marks that it needed. You look at, of course, Redfall. That was a flop. You shouldn't have made that. And that's from the top. They shouldn't have done that. You go down the list. Ghostwire Tokyo was not a good game. That's why we're here at this moment. It's like someone eventually is going to have to look at them and say, you got to stop doing this. Make the game that we need to sell.
This is what we're the concern, right, that I've talked about on most of these shows since the Xbox layoffs and studio closures, right, of like the fear that it's Microsoft putting the screws to them. Of, all right, we just spent $69 billion on this. Fucking make money from this. Like, is the party over of being able to come in and fund the art house project, right? When you're an indie studio, when you're Senua's Sacrifice, Hellblade 1, right? It's so much easier to have a level of success. And oh my God, we destroyed this. This is amazing. And then you bring that in here and for 7 years work on this game and get here and it's another 80 on Metacritic. You know what I mean? With people up and down all over the place. And very few of the reviews being, oh, combat was awesome. Even the ones that are giving it the 9s and 8s are like, combat. Well, I shouldn't put words in all these mouths. You can go read the reviews and stuff. People do like the combat. But it's like that idea of like Xbox, I have to imagine, just wants a fucking win. Not a win with an asterisk, not a win, well, if you like this, not a win if you like Bethesda games, yes, you'll forgive Starfield's problems, or we're patching it, nearly a year later, and this, that, and the, like, they just want to fucking celebrate something. And they can celebrate this, and I've seen them doing tweets and stuff, but again, it's the same argument of like, yeah, you can do it, but there are these other reviews that are there. And there's always negative reviews, I know, but I feel like this is a very interesting divide of like, I'm going to let it off the hook for the things I don't like because I loved this so much. And other people be like, I love that stuff, but I can't let it off the hook for this.
What's up, Paris?
Yo, to what Greg is saying then, and I'm asking Greg directly.
Fucking bring it on.
Then what is the games that we know of? What's the game then? That where they just get the pure win. What do you think that game's going to be?
And that's my same question, right? Like, I don't think you find that game through the acquisitions that they've been making. I think maybe you thought that Bethesda Game Studios were going to give that to you with whatever their next big thing is, and maybe that still is going to happen with Elder Scrolls 6, or maybe you consider that to be the case with Starfield. But
I definitely, well, no, because that'd be the same argument, right? Where I think Starfield again was so polarizing and not, whatever. But I think Elder Scrolls 6 has to be a fucking slam dunk. Fallout 5 has to be a slam dunk, but we're talking so far down the line. Now you look and it's like, I'd like to say Indiana Jones, right? But like,
we'll see.
Will it? Like, you know what I mean? This is a conversation we've had on the movie side of Kind of Funny of like, well, do people give a shit about Indiana Jones? They make the movies. It doesn't seem like it, but this is a game. Will it be different? People want an Uncharted. I don't love Indiana Jones, right? I enjoy the films fine. I've never been an indie guy. Like, I'm dressing up like them, but the game makes me incredibly excited. Yes, fuck yeah, let's go.
I think my thing too with this is that Hellblade 2, based on the way people are, based on the Metacritic, based on the way people are talking about it, I think if you are Microsoft, if you're Xbox and you acquired Ninja Theory in 2017 and look at how people received Hellblade 1, you don't look at the Hellblade 2 reviews and go, oh, we didn't expect this. Like, this is the exact same way it went with Hellblade 1 of a lot of people being like, oh man, this is art, this is incredible, this is all this stuff. And then all the other people being like, yeah, I don't vibe with the combat, oh man, this is different. And I think you're probably going to see the same in terms of what the commercial success of it is. I don't think Hellblade 2 is going to sell gangbusters. I think it's going to do probably a little bit better than what Hellblade 1 did. And yeah, as Microsoft, you're making an acquisition like Ninja Theory. You're making acquisitions like Double Fine. I think you look at any of these studios that are of that ilk and go, make something that's mainstream, that's going to hit with everybody. You're fucking up the acquisitions. You're fucking up the consolidations, right? Like I also think you're making a worse games industry if you're converting these very special independent studios into something that are going like studios that are feasibly going to be hit machines for you or aren't going to exist because they can't be hit machines for you.
And so you really hope, right, that this Activision Blizzard spins up the way they want it. And Call of Duty's it, gets $1 gajillion. It's the biggest entertainment launch, Diablo's latest season, everybody's saying Diablo's back, even though I never thought it was gone, but doesn't matter what I think. Now everybody's putting up headlines that it's back, and you hope that expansion this summer, right, is fucking amazing. You hope that Starfield expansion, Shattered Space, that I can't fucking wait for because I've been re-addicted to Fallout, or Starfield. I have so much to tell you about my fucking my trials and tribulations out there. Me and Barrett tearing up the universe, you know what I mean? Don't worry, we cleared his husband's name, Mike. Anyways, well, is that going to be the one of this is incredible? Fallout 76, they got another expansion coming. Is that going to be something like these can be those things? But again, like they just want to win. They just want the fucking dominoes to fall. And like I'm with you 1,000% for the record of like yes, when you buy Ninja Theory, you're going to expect this. When you buy Double Fine, you're going to expect that. Don't fuck it up. Don't get in there and muck it up and go do this. But it is that idea of what I got written in here, right, from Marky Johnson, that Blessing said it perfectly. The problem with is consolidation, particularly from Microsoft. They've not been good stewards of these studios, right? Like, I just worry about Microsoft coming down, crunching on them and changing what they are and making them do it and eliminating people. And
to me, it seems like they haven't crunched on anyone. They've given everyone the freedom to make whatever they want.
I'm sorry. I combine 2 points there. I combine 2 points there. I'm saying that my point is I'm worried that the fact that the games haven't produced the way they haven't been hit makers, that then Microsoft gets involved and fucks up Xbox's vision.
It's an interesting place of we're ending this review. We're on this review to talk about this game, and now we're talking about Xbox in the big picture. It's always funny we get back to this, right? Of like the mixed feelings of Xbox. It's wild that we're here again. But I mean, you bought an art house studio, as Blessing said, to make art. They've done that. You've elevated their tech within the mocap studio, the audio range, to provide them probably a whole lot of money to buy all this stuff and given them the power to do this, right? Should we not be celebrating what they just made, right? Now the issue is, well, it's not a hit. It's not good enough. Well, now we're just getting in the shareholder territory of like, well, then you should be making Fortnites. You should be making Call of Duties. And Phil and the team have fought hard not to do that. But there will be a moment, if that's what we want, they're going to turn and do that, because I could easily look at this team and say, make me Uncharted, figure it out. And they'll do that, right? Hey, Machine Games, make me more Wolfensteins and Dooms. Do it. You know, like eventually there will be a moment where if that's what you want, that's what's going to happen here. But they've fought so hard to keep all these so far. I mean, we should be celebrating that in my mind. Unless you want Fortnites, and they haven't made Fortnite yet.
You look at me like I want it. No. I'm looking at you, and I'm saying, yeah, they fought this hard to get there. Where's the fucking win? That's what I just mean, and I say this out of fear for them. I like the vision Phil and team have talked about for so long. I love Xbox being everywhere.
And this isn't a win, though? Huh? This isn't a win. A stunning visual, incredible game that pushes the medium forward. That's not a win. Like, I guess the flip side of this is like, why aren't we celebrating this as a win? You bought Ninja Theory to make another Hellblade. You gave them all the money. They produced something incredible in front of all of our eyes. Maybe it didn't hit on the combat and gameplay side, but they pushed this forward. That's what you wanted, right?
Yeah,
that's
Greg,
a win.
Answer it.
No,
I think it's so simple. No, I mean, yeah, they pushed like 2 out of 4 aspects forward.
I get that, but
that's
like,
a 50% win ratio. It sucks.
We have to say to ourselves
Did
right
the
now,
Order
gamers,
1886 push Sony to a different level?
If this isn't a win here, then you're just clearly saying to the world, just make Fortnite. Like, if we're not going to celebrate these moments, then you're looking at them going, shit, man, like, you did this. You elevated that with that studio, and you kept them open and alive with all your money. But you know what? Not good enough. You're telling me they're not going to look at you and go, okay, well, it's time to make that.
This game did not elevate gaming. It elevated visuals, 1,000%.
That Xbox Series X is the only time you've ever looked at that Xbox Series X and said, damn, I didn't know this console could fucking do that.
Now, for the record, I only turn on my Xbox Series X twice a year, so there's a lot of times where like, I didn't know it could do that.
Right now, this is near the top. You might bring up 2 other games, but like this is clearly one of the big 3 poster childs for this generation of pushing this console forward. To prove to me why I need this console, this is one of those marquee titles.
Wow.
And that's a win.
Can I jump in?
Yeah, please go,
jump in on this? Because I love this back and forth that both of you are having. But
we lost focus on you.
Bring it back to last year when Phil came on Xcast. See, this is the thing. With Arcane, it sounds like they didn't intervene enough, but then you say you don't want them to. So what's the balance? That's kind of where they have to figure it out. Like with Ninja Theory, to me, I think Ninja Theory made the game they wanted to make. I don't think Xbox jumped in and told them to do anything.
100%.
This is what they wanted to do, which is what we want. But then at the same time, there's the business side of it to where, all right, you got to make a profit. You got to have revenue. What games are supposed to do that? Which ones don't? So they have to figure out that balance, I think.
100%.
And to Mike's point, we don't just want Fortnite. We want
100%.
I am happy this game exists, warts and all. We need these kind of games to go along with the Fortnites and the Call of Duties of the world. So for that aspect of it, absolutely, I think this is a win for Xbox. It shows that they are not afraid to have these type of games come out. They're not afraid for this game to have, hell, what is it, a 5-6 year development cycle or whatever it was, right? That the end result, sure, it may not have certain things it didn't do to push the industry forward, but from a visual standpoint, to what Mike is saying, it's the best looking game I've seen on the Xbox Series X. This is a game they can push out to the front and go, this is what this hardware can do. This is where we're trying to take visual fidelity. I'm sure the coalition is looking at this and going, well, goddamn, we better make sure the Gear 6 looks this good, because Ninja Theory just showed you what Unreal 5 can do on this console. So just on that aspect alone, I think this is a win for Xbox, because they can use this to show what Xbox Game Studio games can do, whether you think it's a 10 out of 10 or a 6 out of 10.
I'm gonna be the person that's on both sides, but I do think that you guys are both right in some instance, right? I think this game is considered a win if you're looking at the Xbox that acquired Ninja Theory went, hey, we like what you did with Hellblade and we like what you've done as a studio. We like what you're doing with technology, and seeing them take the time, put out this product. I think you look at the split nature of it in terms of reception. I think you look at the current Metacritic. I think you expect how many people are going to show up to it and buy it, right? Which isn't going to be like the craziest number of people, but I think the fans and I think enough people will probably show up and buy it and have like a regular reception in terms of what it does commercially. I think all of that is a win, but I also think that when I say it's a win, I am talking about Xbox pre this last year.
This is the point I'm driving at.
As far as what the video game industry has turned into, as far as how money is tightened up, as far as all the layoffs and studio closures, in the last few weeks, the news stories with Xbox and Microsoft have been that, it seems like Microsoft as an entity is putting way more scrutiny on Xbox post Activision Blizzard acquisition as they did pre. I think pre Activision Blizzard acquisition, Xbox would have looked at this and went, yeah, fuck, you guys did great. Like, you guys did exactly what we wanted you to do. I think right now, Microsoft's looking at them and is talking the way that Greg is right now, which is, no, we need a fucking hit though. That is why you look at Arcane Austin and Tango Gameworks. I think that's how you lose them, is they go to Xbox and go, hey, get the margins up, close down some people. I think right now you need to, as Xbox, prove to Microsoft that you have big money makers, you have big hits, you have studios that can produce that kind of thing. And I think any studio that isn't poised to be able to produce that kind of thing, I think they are in danger. Not necessarily because of Phil, Sarah, and that team looking at like, oh man, we can't do
their bosses.
Yeah, I think it's their bosses. I think it's the Satya and Nadellas of the world being like, yeah, but Hellblade didn't sell the way that we need it to. It didn't sell like a Call of Duty. It didn't sell like how PlayStation's doing God of War and Spider-Man over there. I think that's kind of where the split nature of it is.
100%.
Yeah. We're in an interesting place for Xbox because we don't celebrate their wins enough, but then when we do get a win, we say it's not good enough. And so there's this weird dynamic shift of Xbox right now where they are purchasing these studios, trying to nurture and elevate them. And when we get a hi-fi rush, we celebrate and it's great. We get a Redfall and it's the worst thing on planet Earth. And they're in this constant ebb and flow. And now we get a game that probably, in my mind, should be celebrated. This game should be like, hey, you did the damn thing, great job. But Xbox isn't going to be seen like that because it's got an 81 on Metacritic. And they're going to go, oh man, that's just another mid game from Xbox. Unbelievable, right? When it's like, hey, that's another great game that should be added to the Xbox catalog that can justify your Game Pass purchase, maybe a console sale, right? It's just bolstering the team. And they're coming out with these games where, like we said so many times, you're hoping for the domino to fall, but like the dominoes keep missing. But there's wins in those dominoes. You have a Forza Horizon 5. That's a Game of the Year contender. You have a Microsoft Flight Sim that changes technology as a whole using cloud. You got games like Halo Infinite, which, sure, they didn't stick the landing in live service, but goddamn, that game was fucking good, right? And we didn't give that enough love. You look at Psychonauts 2. That's a great game under their umbrella. You go down the list, it's like there's good games in here that should be celebrated, but every time they miss, it's like, oh, damn, Phil, you guys suck at this. You're never going to get it right. It's a weird place to be, man. I get it. I'm on both sides, right? I love Sony. I love Nintendo. I love Xbox. It's just a weird place to be though, like, right? PC sucks. Yeah. You know what I mean? But it's like, hey, that's where we're at, you know? That's
fuck you, Paris.
I like my PC.
Something we didn't talk about on this, because I know we kind of, hey, it looks great on the Series X. We know it looks great on PC. I played it on the Series S. Looks great.
Yeah.
Plays great. I mean, it's definitely, again, another W for them. The little box that was able to play this game at a great visual fidelity. So anybody on the Series S will have no issues playing Hellblade 2.
Tell you, it was a shocking experience when I went on the road and I took my Series S with me and I plugged in and played Starfield. They're like, oh, right, this doesn't do 60. Whoa, fuck.
That's crazy.
I've been feasting my eyes on Starfield since that patch I got there. I was like, oh, damn, fuck.
I split my time between Xbox Series X at home and then playing at work. I'm playing on my portable or my gaming laptop. And I can't give you the specs right now. I don't even know what the fuck brand that gaming laptop is. All I know is that
Chinatown is off the street.
All I know is
I'm not gonna say what it is.
That shit was barely holding together, but it got the job done though. Like it ran the game. But I was like, man, I can't wait to play this on Xbox Series X when I get home because it looked really good on console.
It was one of the few times as an Xbox gamer where I have smiled from ear to ear and I've been wowed by playing an Xbox game studio saying, damn, this shit is awesome. Good for them, right? I do that all the time with PlayStation games. I turn on Uncharted, I go, God damn, this is the best. I turn on Last of Us, this is rocks. I turn on
You
the
refuse
Robo
to put on
Dino game.
Helldivers, though.
I'm like, yo, this game rocks, right?
Dino,
On Xbox, I finally get that. I'm like, yo, this rocks. You got a talented studio. Let's nurture them. Let's give them the money to back this up. If they want to tell freaky deaky stories, you tell those freaky deaky stories. If you want to look at them and tell them make a mainstream goddamn banger, you tell them to do that. But this studio should be protected and like celebrated. And I hope that 6 months down the line they're not getting canned, right? Because that would
They
suck.
usually give them a year. They'll port it to PlayStation, then they'll cancel it.
Mike, I'm celebrating them. I think it's a win.
Thank you, homie. It's a win.
Let me get 2 questions before I get out of here from the super chats. All right, Chris wrote in and said, I've never finished Hellblade 1, but don't want to risk spoilers and such from Hellblade 2. How much does it matter to play Hellblade 1 first? Thank you. I mean, in terms of the story, not much. There's a great recap that they do at the very, very front that plays and tells you the whole story to give you what you need. But
yeah, I don't think so.
I mean, you also just get to it, Chris. Like, why? Just go. Do it.
Yeah, just finish it. It's the same kind of game.
Yeah. And then final one, CJ says, this is something we touched on that they've said they're working on another game, the next game or whatever, what this one is. CJ says, and we'll go down the line, Mike to me, do you want a third game? And if so, what to change?
I do not want a third game with Senua. I would like them to do something different. I think Project Mara is supposed to be some weird psychological horror game.
Awesome.
I would like to see that. If that's what that truly is, I'm into that.
Paris?
I have to hedge. I both, because I do want a third game for Hellblade, but I also want to see them do a Project Mara-esque something different as well. I'll answer it this way. I would love to see them do something else first and then come back to Hellblade. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Bless.
I hope we don't get another one. I almost didn't want a second one. The only reason why I'm like, all right, cool, let's do it, is because they seem like they wanted to make the second one. But I still think that Hellblade 1 is a standalone type thing, and Hellblade 1 plus 2 as a standalone thing works. I don't need any more of this specific story.
Yeah, I'm like Ninja Theory as a studio, right? I haven't connected with these last 2 games, but again, I do think that they are technical powerhouses and do some amazing stuff. So I want them to go and do whatever they want to do next. I'd be way more interested in a Project Mara, right? If they were going to come back to Hellblade, I would want to see them go, listen, we're not the best at combat and puzzles, so let's remove one of them, make it just cinematic. How do we do a more walking sim, whatever the hell kind of thing? And fix that one.
Or they hire the Cocoon team to come in and do the puzzles. And they'll win. How about that?
Then you'd be bitching that they changed what the DNA of Hellblade is.
You're right.
What I mean?
So you can't win.
Can't win. Don't stop making games, everybody. There's no way to win. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the Kinda Funny Gamescast review of Senua's Saga Hellblade 2. As a reminder, Mike gave it a 9 out of 10, called it amazing. Paris gave it an 8 out of 10, called it great. And Blessing and I gave it a 6.5 out of 10 and said it was okay. What did you think? Let us know in the comments below, of course, because you can't. You could do it in the live chat right now, but like we're shutting down live chat, so that's it. But guess what? If you wanted to watch live with us and be part of the show and do the super chats and all that jazz, you can catch the Kinda Funny Gamescast each and every weekday live on YouTube, Twitch, and podcast services around the globe. Thank you so much for joining us. Of course, so many of you were saying this is a great conversation. We had like 2,500 people watching throughout. Thank you so much, just on YouTube.
And chat was so polite the entire time.
Yeah.
You guys are so nice.
They weren't mad at us or each other at all. I digress. Remember, like, subscribe, share, follow. If you have the means, a Kinda Funny membership would go a long way. You'd get good karma because you'd be supporting an 11-person independent operation in a very tough field. But of course, your $10 would also get you all of our shows ad-free. The ability to watch the podcast in the afternoon, like the Kinda Funny podcast this very afternoon, live as we record them, and you'd get my daily multimedia experience known as Greg Way. What is the third reason for the hat? Don't you want to know?
I need to know.
Don't you want to know? Come on over to patreon.com/kindafunny or youtube.com/kindafunnygames to get your membership. However, if you don't have any of that, like, subscribe, share, and remember that the Kinda Funny Gamescast comes your way with reviews, previews, and so much more each and every weekday right after Kinda Funny Games Daily and right before we stream some video games. Right after this, we're going to go stream on Twitch and YouTube some X-Defiant.
That's right, live chat. I'm going to talk to you about X-Defiant. We're going to talk about it.
Sancho West is there too, I heard?
Sancho West will be there. Blessing after his lunch with you will be there. It's going to be a great time.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, until next time, it's been our pleasure to serve you.